very different here. I mean, being the 90s kids, we were not. I don't think our parents were very much aware of what a safe space should be. I think it was more of uh, a survival thing where everyone was just trying hard to survive. So I wouldn't say that I had the best safe space when I was a kid, but I had a lot of learnings from when I was a kid. So everything that I have seen around me, everything that I have been through myself, I think I realized I realize how important it is for everyone to create that sort of safe space for everyone that they are associated with. Especially children around them, because on the surface things always seem to be the best version of what it is. But when you go within, when you look deep down, you understand that the flaws there are major flaws, and especially when it comes to education, how our education is. We are hardly, uh, there's something as simple as a good touch, bad touch is still not there everywhere in every school. Something
Mhm.
like that is not taught yet. So I think our education still lags behind. So as adults, as parents, as brothers and sisters, as teachers, it becomes our responsibility to kind of help children understand the importance of safe space, and create something like that for them.
Okay, so you're talking about how our education system needs to change. Do you think that was one change that might have maybe helped you as a child?
Oh, it would have helped massively. I think it would have been, the only place, that the kid learns from after home is school, right? Otherwise, you're just with your friends, and there is no learning of sorts. But I think if schools manage to create that sort of an environment where kids are learning about it, I think it would really really help. And I know that a lot of schools have introduced it, but I think we're still far behind.
Okay, and do you think you might have had these conversations with friends instead? Because school is a very stringent environment, very
Absolutely.
structured. Hmm. Do you
Absolutely, I
think it
think.
would have helped to have these conversations with friends instead, so that at
Yeah, yeah,
least a
yeah.
group, a support system was formed?
I mean, see, when I was a kid, I don't think all of us were in the same boat. Yeah, so nobody had that sort of an understanding. But as I grew up, I did find some very close friends that we could, talk about things like these, and he could relate to my experiences, I could relate to his experiences, so we kind of bonded over that. But I think as kids, it would be the worst idea to talk about it with your friends, because they have absolutely no idea. And, you know,
Okay.
uh,
Mm.
it
So
is sort of
now, mhm.
misdirection in a way if you're talking to someone who's as unaware as you are.
So yeah, so you're saying that children might not have all the resources, and an adult might be of better help if they were in trouble. Of course. And now that you are an adult yourself, what does a safe space mean to you?
Um, yeah, a typical definition of a safe space could be a place where a child or a person in general. I won't just talk about a child. Is has that sort of a trust in someone,
Mhm.
a trust of not being judged, a trust of being respected. But I just think that there are some things that we overlook when it comes to safe space. Also, I think the three most important things for me, at least, when it comes to safe space, is a is of course trust. Trust that holding a safe space for someone, you need to realize that the person is putting all of their trust into that space, right?
Of course.
Second is respect. Actually, four things. Second is respect. You respect the fact that the person trusts you for holding that safe space. Third is boundaries. There are very clear defined boundaries in that space, and both
Mhm.
the people or more people are very much aware of what the boundaries in that safe space are. And the fourth and the most important thing that we tend to overlook is accountability. I think if we understand that we are accountable for a certain safe space, and we keep it in our head all the time, I think it helps. It becomes a very nurturing sort of a safe space. It does not just become a very textbookish safe space where no one is actually growing. It's just that you're just having conversations. If you're accountable for that safe space, you make sure that the person feels safe, feels cared for, feels respected, and feels that there is no judgment, no criticism, there is no sort of a shame associated with that space. So I think that is very important in safe space.
You spoke about personal boundaries, and I think that ties up very well with what we were speaking about education not being sufficient. Um, Do you think that maybe if we taught children personal boundaries, being able to say no? So currently, in Indian culture, children are not taught to say no. If an adult is doing something, you just listen. You don't back answer. You just you go along with it. Do you think teaching them personal boundaries, maybe the concept of saying no, and it's okay to say no, maybe that would make a small change?
I just think that we have misinterpreted Indian culture so much that everything that we do, and it's really sad that everything that we do, we want to justify it with Indian culture. I
Okay.
don't know where that's coming from. If people are talking about Indian culture, they should actually look back, study about the culture. If people are talking about history, about mythology, I think they should really go down and study about what Indian culture is about. If they're talking, people tend to bring in religion and gods into Indian culture. I think they are very separate things. But even if they want to, if they actually look at the stories of the past, look at the stories of Krishna and Ram as kids, they'll realize what Indian culture is actually about, right? So, we should just stop using the word Indian culture to justify everything that we are doing. B, um, yes, personal boundaries are very important when it comes to teaching kids. Keeping everything aside, keeping culture and everything aside, just as an individual, they need to be taught in the easiest way possible as to what personal boundaries are with every layer of relationship that they have in their life, starting with parents, then with siblings, then with relatives, then with friends, then with teachers, and then with strangers eventually. So if they're taught layers of personal boundaries, I think they grow up to become much more aware, much more safe in a much more safe environment. So, um, yes, we are at least coming from 90s. I think we've been taught to make space for everyone. Don't just say no. Include everyone, let everyone be, and all of that. But I do wish that if we were taught personal boundaries as kids, also things would have been much better than they are right now.
Of
So
course, but thinking as a child, it's very easy for us now as adults to say, let's teach them personal boundaries. But often when children do speak out, or children do bring up issues like this, there is bullying, there is silence, there's stigma. Do you think that that makes them equal? Equality is something we really have to talk about when we talk about all of these issues. That's why I'm bringing it up. Do you think a child may feel equal when they go through something like child sexual abuse?
absolutely not. I mean, I think it's the most horrific experience, and the fact that the child does not realize it's a horrific experience is even worse, right?
Mhm.
So, uh, when it comes to speaking out, I think there are actually two, three things here. One is, when something like this happens to them, how do they react to it? B, if they speak out and if they're not treated right, is it a part of equality? Of course, it's not. And C, how do we create an environment where a child is able to speak out, speak about it, and point a finger at it, saying that I don't think I was comfortable with this, and I think that this is wrong. So, equality. When we talk about equality, what happens is it starts at ground level, right? So once there is awareness and education for all, equality becomes easier to achieve, right? So if as a kid who goes through this experience, speaks out in front of his friends who have no idea about any of this, and those friends kind of start bullying him, you see there is an inequality in the education that has happened, right? So that is where it all stems from, because of lack of education for all. Second, how does one create a space where a child can talk about it in a way that that he's not treated to be different from other kids? Yeah. Again, that again comes down to the fact that you are preparing your children for the fact that something things like these happen, and if something like this happens to you, it's not okay, but it's okay for you to speak about it. It's not okay for it to happen to you, but it is very much okay for you to speak about it and make sure that it does not happen to you. We create a culture of empathy within our children. I think we're losing, a lot of us as adults don't have empathy because we've not been taught empathy as children. So I think if we inculcate the idea of empathy within children, they will there is a sort of ripple effect that happens where children feel empathy for their friends around them. So they also start creating that safe space for each other, where if a certain child is not able to speak out, their friends help that child to speak out. So I think that is
Okay.
there. But third thing that I genuinely feel is, I of course believe that there should be equality, but not just equality. I think equality goes hand in hand with equity. I
Mhm.
think we often overlook equity at an individual level, equality, but at a societal level, at an organizational level, I think equity is also as important. I think the fairness that is there is very much important, because equity really helps you to get into the issue of genders, get into the issue of backgrounds, in the issue of caste and all of it, right? So you
Yeah.
actually do realize that it's not just distributing the same thing for everyone, but in all fairness, providing something for someone that needs it the most is very much
So,
important.
so recognizing that each person has some sort of privilege and others don't, and
Right,
creating resources and opportunities for everybody according to that.
right, right.
Okay.
So I think
And that
equity
that
becomes much
kind of
more.
ties up into my next question, and this is actually from a viewer on our YouTube right now. We've spoken about a lot of emotional aspects of equality and creating a safe space, empathy in a child, and having a safe space to open up. But do you think a physical space would also be safe for a child? How can we create a physically safe space then?
See, a physically safe space is not dissociated with a mental safe space, right? So it all starts here, and then it kind of starts reflecting in the physical space around you. So if you are if you're fed the right things, you come up with the right output, right? It's all about that. If you're fed a good breakfast, your health, it shows in your health.
Yeah.
So if you're taught in your head that this is the best food that I can get for myself, it kind of shows in your body also. So it all starts here. Once you've made your child ready for the fact that, a space where you feel physically okay, where you don't feel uncomfortable, where no one is behaving with you in a way that one should not behave, when no one is touching you in the wrong way, that is a good physical space for you. And if you're in a physical space where someone is trying to touch you in places which is not right, making you uncomfortable, making you feel what even your parents won't do, if that person is trying to do that with you, if that's a space you should not be in, the child understands that it's the wrong physical space, right? So I think creating that sort of physical space comes from the fact that a child knows what is the difference between a wrong and the right physical space. So I think that
Okay.
is probably the best way to go about it.
So probably first teaching them about safe and unsafe touch and what is
Absolutely. It
right
all
and wrong for
starts.
them.
Yes.
Okay.
And
But
second most
then,
important thing,
yeah.
of course, empowering them to raise a flag. Raising a flag is very important.
But how would a child raise a flag when research also shows that 90% of perpetrators are people known to the child? How can a child raise their voice when it's somebody they know?
How at least most of my generation, how we've been brought up as kids. We've been brought up as I was a kid. I was very close to my mom, but I was scared of my dad. Right, that has
Mhm.
been the story of everything. So I knew that there are certain boundaries with my parents, right? I knew that I couldn't talk in a certain way with my dad. I knew I couldn't talk in a certain way with my mom or about certain things. And especially when I made a lot of friends, I knew that there were things that we discussed that probably I couldn't bring back home. But in the on the contrary, my cousin sister, the way she was brought up is she would go and talk about everything, even the smallest of the things, with her mom. Even today, her mom knows all of her best friends, all of her enemies, of all of the people that she does not gel with, the people she gels with. All of the things that happen in her group. Her mom knows everything. Not that she'd want to interfere, but she knows, right? So she's been brought up in that way. I think when you as parents, when you stop playing the role of stereotypical parents, you kind of break those barriers. You make sure that your child is comfortable sharing everything that happens in the group, with in the group or in the surroundings that they are. It creates a lot of difference. The upbringing is what matters the most. right? If I am always scared, if I've always been all my life I've been scared of my dad, I don't think I'd share most of my things with him.
Okay, so you're saying parenting makes a huge difference, being able
Yeah,
to be open with your parents.
yeah, I have seen today, and I'm very happy about it. I've seen a generation of kids so close to their parents that they share everything that there is. Parents don't even mind having a drink with their kid. I don't think it was possible back then when I was, uh, growing up. So if they're sharing a drink with their kid and treating them like their friend while maintaining the fact that there is a parental boundary also, it becomes very easy for a child to feel comfortable to come and talk about everything and raise a flag and share everything with the parents.
But being comfortable is one thing. Do you think if a child was actually sexually abused and they were also close with their parent, do you think the parent would go ahead to report it?
Uh, it's given the fact that there are so many things not being reported even today. I think not really. I mean, at least given today's scenario, I think there'll be a lot. In fact, but honestly, if you look at the data, there have been an increase in the reports because parents have become aware. Parents are wanting to raise reports, raise a red flag, but mostly no. And the reasons are very external. They are not internal. There's a lot of external locus of control, as we say. There's no internal locus of control there. Um, there is a lot of shaming out there. There is a lot of name giving out there. Even our law and the processes are so sort of messed up right now that even if one wants to file a complaint or file a report or go through that process, it's a very hard process on the victims themselves more than it is on the perpetrators. So it's sad. Sadly, it's not there yet, but I'm hoping it kind of evolves.
Okay. And we have one more question from the audience on YouTube. While you were talking about parenting and being comfortable with your parents, opening up to them, one of them asks, do you think gender stereotyping and gender norms play a role where they're not that comfortable with their parents? Maybe, like you said, you had a very different experience with your parents versus a cousin sister. Do you think gender played a role in there?
At least in my times, yes. I just think that my generation is are turning out to be a little more better parents than my own generation, my parents' generation was, because we are a lot more aware. But gender, there has been a gender stereotype, at least in my times. Of course, I've seen that that guys are supposed to be guys and girls are supposed to be girls, and men cannot cry and men should not cry. I have I've been a troublemaker kid. I've thought that even when I was growing up, violence is the way to kind of deal with the world, and I should be the strongest version of myself, and I shouldn't cry and all of that. uh, yes, I have been and not by my parents specifically, but my relatives, that ladki ki tarah kyun ro raha hai? Why are you crying like a girl? And things, I've heard a lot of things, yeah. But I don't suppose, I suppose it's not happening as much right now, at least with the parents of my age. So gender stereotypes do play a role, but I think we are working on it and there is progress.
Okay, that's good to hear. And now moving a little ahead, I sent you a video called "All I Want
Yes.
for Christmas." So what did you think of that video?
I think it was a very, I'm sorry, because I come from an advertising background, the first thing I look at is how the quality of the video is and how well it is made. I think it has been made very well. It's a very well
Thank you.
made video. I think the subtlety of messaging in the video it's beautiful. It's made very well. I think it's a really good video.
Thank you so much. Definitely coming from you, who's been in the field for so long. Thank you so much. But within the video, for our viewers who haven't seen it, there is a young boy who reveals to his sister that he was sexually abused by somebody close in the family. What do you think Didi would do now? What would the sister do? Would she report? Would she go to her parents? What do you think should be the next step?
I have no idea what she will do, but I can only hope that a she sits the kid down and talks to him in a very comfortable way, so that the kid shares everything, gets an understanding of everything that has happened, and raises a flag to the parents first. I really think
And and do you think it
parents
would be an open discussion in
they
that
won't be
family?
comfortable with it, but at least they should be the first ones to know about it.
And even if she does tell them, do you think it might be an open discussion between the family? Would it be openly
Probably not.
discussed? Hmm.
Probably not. And I think it will not be. But I still feel that they should be the first ones to know about it, right? And after that, if there is nothing happening for their end, I think the girl, the Didi there, should raise a flag, should go out there and kind of consult someone, maybe a child psychologist or someone who's expert in their field, and talk about the next steps. you know I wouldn't recommend going bazaar and going to a police station first and filing a report, but at least taking some expert help before going ahead and taking the next steps.
Yes, of course. It's very hard to break that barrier and immediately say, I'm going to run to the police or I'm going to
Yeah,
run
it's,
to
it's not
officials
going
to
to happen.
report here.
Honestly, it's not going to happen. No one is going to, no one has that. It's not a film. We're not in a film. No one actually goes to the court and goes to the police station directly, but at least take smaller steps and seek the right advice.
Okay, great. So, tying up all of that, what would be your advice or your next commitment to creating a safe space? What would you like to do?
I just think that let's all be very aware. I just think let's not close our eyes, shut our eyes, and shut our ears to everything that is happening around us. The only worry that I have about the generation that's coming after me is that they don't become too self-obsessed and too self-involved in their own selves that they forget what is happening around them. I just feel that we are somehow going towards it. I understand self-love is very important, but at the same time, do not shut yourself to what is happening around you. Be very aware of what's happening around you. Understand, you have, especially you are a generation that knows the that has more knowledge than any other generation to have ever existed, right? So you have everything for you. You have all the knowledge in your hand. Make the right use of it. Be aware, um, and make every attempt at making the children around you feel comfortable. I just think that speak out, speak for other people, have that sort of an empathy. I think we come from a generation where we have had poets like Dr. Nawaz Deobandi, who's written four beautiful lines, two couplets. कि जलते घर को देखने वालों फूस का छप्पर आपका है, आपके पीछे तेज हवा है, आगे मुकद्दर आपका है, उसके कत्ल पे मैं भी चुप था, मेरा नंबर अब आया, मेरे कत्ल पे आप भी चुप है, अगला अगला नंबर आपका है. So I think if we don't realize the fact that we could be the next ones, if we don't have that empathy for people around us, it's all going to break down. So just be aware, try and make every attempt to create a safe space for children. Have respect, give respect, have boundaries, set boundaries, teach children the importance of this. And I think we'd be all be better citizens at least.
That is very good advice, especially because we work with a lot of young people around the
Right.
age of 18 to 25. I think that is perfect to them. Build a little empathy, learn to talk to others and not just be very self-involved. Thank
Absolutely.
you. To wind this all up, we'll do a quick rapid fire, five
Sure.
questions, as quickly as you can. Yeah? Okay. What animal do you identify as?
Panda.
Oh, great. Okay. What food would you die for?
What food?
What food would you die for?
Dal chawal.
Ooh, very nice. Okay. Your magic wish.
My magic wish. Uh, right now, honestly, I just want the all the wars to stop here around the world. I just want people to stop dying. That would be.
Very fair. And what is equality for you?
Uh, Equality for me is the treatment that you would want to receive is something that you give to the other person, right? The way you would want to be treated is how you want to treat the other person, and also believe in the fact that equality does not come without equity. I think that is something which.
Great. Yeah, equity is very important to remember. And finally, could we have two lines of your verse, please? Anything in Hindi, Urdu, whatever you've written, just two lines, please.
Sure. If you're okay with, I could take 2 minutes and recite a poem that I had.
Yes, please, definitely.
And it's around the fact that what we talked about, right? We are getting too self-absorbed as people, as generation, and how do we kind of tackle that? It's around that. Give me 1 second.
Yes, definitely, please.
So while it's a message for all the artists, through artists, it's a message for everyone out there, especially people who become successful, conventionally successful, Once you become successful, what next? It's a question that is there in this poem. मरते अरमानों की अब भी जान बचाई जा सकती है, बर्फीले दिल में सपनों की आग लगाई जा सकती है, और बताया जा सकता है दिल का आंगन भरा नहीं है, कितना भी हारा लगता हो प्यार अभी तक मरा नहीं है। तुम बतलाओ, तुम बतलाओ, तुमको खुद से कितनी फुर्सत मिल पाएगी, हाथ बुलंदी छू जाएंगे तुमको किसकी याद आएगी, उस बच्चे की आएगी जो सारे दिन का भूखा है, या उसकी जिसने आस लगाई लेकिन दिल फिर टूटा है, उस माँ की जिसका बच्चा एक जंग में मारा जाता है, उस बाप की जिसकी पगड़ी को हर रोज उछाला जाता है, उस दरिया की जिसके पानी में जहर न जाने कितना है, उन पेड़ों की जिनके कटने में वक्त बचा बस इतना है, उस कलाकार की आएगी जो तुमसे अच्छा लिखता है, लफ्जों को बस्ते में भरकर सबसे पीछे दिखता है, जब पॉपुलर हो जाओगे डंके की चोट पे बोलोगे, या तुम भी बस अपने ही गम का वही पिटारा खोलोगे, उसकी बात करोगे जो बरसों में अब मुस्काया है, या फिर उसकी जिसने फिर से आंखों में दर्द छुपाया है। तुम बतलाओ, क्या तुमसे उम्मीद लगाई जा सकती है, मरते अरमानों की अब भी जान बचाई जा सकती है। आई थिंक दैट्स
Wow. Thank you so much. I think that is a great call to action, and not just for artists or spoken word storytellers. It is a call to action for anybody who's in this space, anybody who has power in their hands right now. Thank you so much, Parth. Thank you for joining us. And I'm sure everything you've spoken about during these 30 minutes is something that resonates with a lot of people. And we really hope they take away something from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to associate with Sakshi, and I'm looking forward for a lot more association with Sakshi. Thank you so much, Vaishali.
Thank you so much, Parth. And thank you so much for everybody who's watching for joining us on the session at Safe Spaces. As you are aware, we are a campaign and we're running from S Box for the Eruption Project by Sakshi, and we are aiming to build a safe space and a world free of child sexual abuse. And we've been doing this with college students, Anganwadi workers, and a lot more other rural communities in India. We've aimed to recognize, identify, and address, report and resolve gender-based violence and child sexual abuse across India. So all of your voices, especially yours, Parth, thank you so much. All of your voices is critical and to amplify this message, to spread awareness, and to give us visibility in what we are doing. So thank you so much, Parth, for joining us, and thank you so much to everybody who tuned in today. It was great to hear from all of you, and especially from Parth. I hope you've all learned something. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, Vaishali.